to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we're going to talk about the Indianapolis Colts taking over the AFC South. And I thought, bring on someone that has a front row seat to all this goodness the Colts has given Colts Nation out there. ESPN.com's Stephen Holder. Man, what is going on?
Not too much. I don't know. Colts are undefeated. Miami's ranked number 2 in the nation. I don't know. It's strange times, man. Strange times. You stick around long enough and you will see everything.
Well, I would say, hey, it's probably great times for you right now since you're sporting the U on your hat right now.
Just a little reminder. Listen, we'll take it when we can get it. It's been rocky for about 20 years, but listen, we will take what we can get.
I hear you there. For those that don't know, Mr. Holder is a University of Miami alum. So, but yeah, they're definitely doing their thing down there in Miami. And I will say that Carson Beck is protecting the football a lot better than he did with the University of Georgia right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But in all my years there, I never jumped off the top of the diving platform like Pat McAfee. So that was definitely a first. But they're having a good time in Coral Gables. So. But the story for me right now is in Indianapolis. So let's get into it.
That's right. The Indianapolis Colts, one of the 6 undefeated teams in the NFL right now, and probably an undefeated team that not a lot of people expected. But of course, they were 2-0 before they got to 3-0, and that basically means they had to play Tennessee Titans this past Sunday, which was a 41-20 win over the Tennessee Titans at Nissan Stadium. And I've got to ask you, what were your thoughts, your first time seeing Cam Ward live and in person? He was 23-38, 219 yards. First pass wasn't a great one. Picked off by Kenny Moore, ran it back to the house. But other than that, 219 yards, threw a touchdown. Didn't give up in the game, kept, pushing the ball down the field, doing different things. What were just your first impressions of him, being that your first time seeing him live and in person in the NFL?
I think about what I expected, which is some good, some bad. I think you just laid out a key element of it, excuse me, which is that he kept battling. And I think that's kind of his MO, no matter if the score is good or bad, he keeps coming, and he is very mentally strong, just from my observations of him as a college player. And I thought he reinforced that against the Colts. It was a tough day. There's no question about it. The protection is problematic. We knew that going in. The Colts have not rushed the passer great this season, but they certainly had the opportunity to get after Cam in that game. So, he was going to see some things and different pressures and a lot of pressure, and he did. And in the face of it all, he hung in there. Look, he is a fantastic athlete. He is a dynamic player who can make you look bad. We've already seen that this year. But things happen fast in this league, and I think he's still acclimating to the speed. I mean, that's just to be expected. He is still going to be acclimating to the speed of the game. And then it is exacerbated, as I said, by the protection issues, which are when you have injury issues and then personnel issues, it's just built in, man. So, we may not get to fully appreciate Cam Ward this season, right, under the circumstances, and it's just unfortunate. But they got a building block there. There's no question about it. There is a lot of other work to do, as you know, better than I do. But I think they got the right guy there in the long term. But this is definitely not there yet.
Yeah, for sure. Now, of course, the team that is there, like we're going to talk about more, is the Indianapolis Colts. And one of the guys that is the centerpiece of that is Jonathan Taylor. Now, he had another 100-yard performance, and he had 3 touchdowns. His first 3 touchdowns of the season. To me, it was very impressive watching him run. But how impressive was it to you to see how physical he ran? Of course, you got to also note the stiff arm he gave Jerry Sneed. Kind of
Mm.
reminded some Titans fans of when Josh Norman took a stiff arm from Derrick Henry when the Bills were playing the Titans on, I think, Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football, one of those two. But yeah, overall 17 carries, 102 yards, and 3 touchdowns for Jonathan Taylor. What can you just say about just his physical style and his just basically his start to the season?
Jonathan is an interesting player because a lot of what people know about him, or the first thing they maybe think about when they think about Jonathan Taylor, is his explosive runs, right? That is his calling card, and that's how he piles up the numbers that he does, right? You saw the 46-yard touchdown. That being said, I have always felt like the thing we should talk about more is his physicality. Here is, a 225-pound or so, give or take, guy who knows how to. He has no problem being physical, and he's not trying to necessarily run around you. Look, he will juke with the best of them, of course, and we saw that in the game. But he has no problem running through your chest either, and I think that is why he is the player that he is. It's the blend of physicality and superior athleticism. He's off the charts. His speed. It's more than just the speed, though. It's his ability to change directions and to accelerate quickly out of the cut. So, a lot of guys can make good cuts, but Jonathan Taylor has a unique ability, I think, to his feet are just unbelievable. He can make the cut and then immediately get up to speed. Now, there are faster guys than Jonathan Taylor. Okay, that's true. But that's what makes his play speed so unique and so tough to deal with, is that he can get in and out of that cut and bang, he accelerates immediately. So some guys got to, build up steam and get downhill again. Jonathan Taylor, it's boom, bam. So that's just an interesting element of his game. And frankly, he just has, and all good running backs have this, just really good vision and patience. Really has, I think, grown in that regard over the course of his career. I remember as a rookie, he came in that first year, and the Colts were really, highly regarded for their offensive line at that moment. And he kept running into the backs of his offensive linemen the first half of the season. I'm like, what is wrong with this kid? Like, is he blind? Like, the hole's not even there yet, man. Slow down. And he was just too eager and just, trying to make every play a big play. And when he slowed down and he understood it, started to really appreciate the blocking scheme and letting blocks develop, that's when it clicked. And he became overnight. It happened. You saw it overnight. Once he understood that, then he became the runner that he is now. And by the end of that season, he had a 200-yard game to close it out. Right. So he's a special player. There's no question about it. And he is one half of their offensive threat with the passing game they have. But he's a special player.
Yeah, for sure. And he definitely was a pleasure to watch this past Sunday. Another thing that was a pleasure to watch, especially for Colts fans, is the defense. Now, last year, the defense was led by Gus Bradley. Pretty much you knew where they were going to be at all times, and wasn't any kind of guessing game. This year, you got a little bit of movement with Lou Anarumo coming in from the Cincinnati Bengals. And one thing that has created is turnovers. Right now, they have 4 interceptions and 1 fumble recovery on the season, with the latest being the first play for the Tennessee Titans with Cameron Ward throwing the interception to Kenny Moore and him running it back for a touchdown. So what can you just say about this defense so far and just their opportunistic nature so far?
It's definitely a spicier defense. They got some seasoning. There's no question about that this year. So I think I would say in the last, 8 or 9 seasons, what you have seen in Indianapolis through Matt Eberflus and Gus Bradley, different defenses, different schemes, but I guess the approach was similar. 4-man front all the time. Very low blitz percentage. You also saw heavy zone coverage with the two deep look with Matt Eberflus and the single high with Gus Bradley, but certainly the concepts with both were in large part to keep everything in front of you. And, that led to now I thought Matt Eberflus was an underrated defensive coordinator. And Gus Bradley clearly has had a lot of success in the NFL. There's no question about that. I mean, his days with the Seahawks are well documented. But the league has evolved. And I think what both of those systems ultimately did do was allow a lot of conversions. And so they're not a finished product right now. They're not. But I do like the change in philosophy. And they are now trying to bring the action to the offense in many cases, whether that means blitzing, whether that means more twist and movement up front of the defensive line. You've seen DeForest Buckner moving to the defensive end spot at times, giving them different looks, as you said. Disguising coverages, right? Kenny Moore is a great example. I don't think he's going to play this week against the Rams. He's got a calf injury that he suffered in that game, but he is really getting back to the player that he's always been. That's his second turnover already in 3 games because he had a sack fumble against Tua Tagovailoa in week 1, and so then this week you see the opportunistic play with the pick 6. Granted, right? I mean, Cam certainly telegraphed that, but that's a guy who's playing with instincts right now, and his ability to be versatile and do different things, they have brought that back with this scheme that they're now playing. And I think you're going to get more out of playmakers in a system that allows for playmaking, right? Pretty simple concept. So I think in that regard, this system has a chance to be successful. They do, however, have to get more consistent with the pass rush. It was great on Sunday, but that was also opportunistic because of what the Titans were dealing with. They got to bring that same kind of intensity to the Rams on Sunday, and I'm not quite sure they're consistent enough just yet for all of the money they spent up front and for all of those draft picks that they have spent up front on that defensive line. Very few teams in the NFL have invested more picks and money in their defensive line than the Colts, so they got to bring it. That has to be a strength of your team every single week, given what they've put into that.
Definitely. For those that don't know, they got Kwity Paye up there. They got a few other guys they have spent money on. They've got Laitu Latu up there.
Yeah, multiple first-round picks.
Those
are 2 right there. Another first-round pick, not by them, but a guy who they spent a first-round pick to trade for, right? So the investment there, and that's just the draft picks, the money, their collective spending on the defensive line, I believe is second or third in the NFL. So you got to get it done. So, but they did on Sunday, no question about that.
Yeah, definitely. Now, of course, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to dive into a story talking about a player that plenty of people around the NFL are talking about. That would be Mr. Daniel Jones. We're going to do that right after this commercial break on touring the AFC South.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are 2 of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off of these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we're back on tour in the AFC South. And like I mentioned before the commercial break, we got to talk about Daniel Jones. And of course, I appropriately named this segment The Daniel Jones Story. Of course, plenty of people know that he, of course, was with the Giants. They went to the playoffs, and plenty of people didn't really give him any real credit about that. They talked about how Saquon was really the offense. Then Saquon leaves. Things go downhill. He gets released. He goes to the Minnesota Vikings. Then this offseason, he is brought to the Indianapolis Colts. And I will say, when he was brought in, there were a lot of people, including me, that thought he was brought there just to be a guy to push Anthony Richardson and, kind of, I guess, push him to be better as the starter. Well, ultimately, and be ultimately a expensive backup. What do you know there? He ends up being the starter, and now he's rolling as the quarterback of this team. My question to you is, when did you know that he was going to be the guy at quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts?
There were signs a long time ago, I thought, that Coach Shane Steichen really had a strong preference for Daniel Jones. However, I didn't heed those signs. So I can think back to conversations with Shane in the offseason that now when I think back to them, I'm like, oh, you know what? He really has liked him all along, right? It just didn't register for me because I think Anthony Richardson, it's two reasons. Anthony Richardson was the incumbent quarterback, right? And showed flashes last year, certainly showed a lot of concern too, right? That was not, overall, you would not say he had a good season. But there were also flashes. And he had played so little that you convince yourself, okay, let's let this thing play out, right? He's 23 years old. He's barely played. He had some real pivotal moments where he showed some mettle. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, Daniel Jones has to, he's here, like you said, to create competition. That's what my mind goes to. The other problem, and I think the other complicating factor was you can't just forget what happened in New York, right? It actually happened. Mm-hmm. He was awful. His team that paid him millions of dollars said, get out of here. Get on the bench. And then they sent him to the bench. He said, well, just cut me. And they said, yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. Get out of here. That happened, man. So I just couldn't get that out of my head. And it is a hard thing to overlook, right? And so to then convince yourself that guy is going to then go somewhere else and be a completely different guy is after 6 years where a lot of that period, there were a lot of questions about him. It is really hard to envision. But Shane Steichen had some foresight here. And I think the organization trusted him. There's no question about that. You heard ownership talk about that and say, we're going to let him make the decision. And we trust, Carly Ursay-Gordon said, we trust that he will make a good decision. And whether she was completely on board with it, I have no idea. But she, to her credit, gave him the latitude to make the decision. Chris Ballard, the GM, gave Steichen the latitude to make this decision. They said it would be a coaching decision. And so Shane Steichen had the foresight to see, okay, if I can get this guy to operate the way I think he can, we have a good system and we have a good scheme and we can call good stuff for him and we got good players and we can make this work. And that's basically how he looked at it. And he was right. The rest of us just didn't see that early enough. So I would say in the last couple of weeks before he made the decision, I started to really come around to the idea that, you know what, I think this might be tilting the other way when maybe I didn't think it was.
Yeah, definitely surprised a lot of people, but that's what Daniel Jones been doing. Just I got to ask you this too. What Daniel Jones has been doing kind of surprised you a little bit as well? He's staying in the pocket. He's completing throws downfield, intermediate. And, in the past, when he saw somebody running at him, he's going to hold that ball. Now he's letting it go, taking the hit, completing the passes. He's playing like one of the best QBs in the NFL, which, I'm looking around, because, a lot of people would say pigs are flying if he was playing this well, but they really aren't flying. He really is playing this well. So, has this play of Daniel Jones truly surprised you?
No, surprise is putting it mildly. Let's be honest. Look, I did say, I have said this on the record many times, that I thought there was a scenario where he could succeed, but this isn't the scenario. The scenario that I thought was, okay, everybody else around him play great and just let him just make the simple plays, just distribute the ball, get out of the way. Instead, what we're seeing is, to a large degree, he's the one that's like orchestrating the whole thing. And he's the one making the great throws and really aggressive throws in many cases. That's the part I did not anticipate. And so I would say I thought there was a way he could succeed. This ain't it. This is something completely different. And how is this happening? All right, I get this question every day. And as best I can tell, a couple things are happening. You just hit on one thing. In New York, that was a man who did not trust his protection. He was terrified. And watch what happens. Go watch the tape. Watch what happened in New York when he got under pressure. He crumbled, right? And that is the sign of a quarterback who lacks confidence in his protection. And it affects your confidence overall. It affects your willingness to cut that ball loose or to stand in the pocket tall and strong. All of those things. Here, he looks like a guy who has utter and complete confidence in what's going on around him. He trusts his offensive line, the protection. He trusts his wide receivers to be where they're supposed to be and to make a play for him. He trusts his coach very clearly to put him in position to succeed. He is completely bought in. He's gotten or has been given extreme control over the offense, which also infuses confidence from the coach to the quarterback, right? That's belief to say, hey, you got 2 plays here at the line of scrimmage, and it's your call. You do what you got to do. You don't need me. Well, that takes the play caller having a lot of confidence in the quarterback, to give him all of these different rules. Lots of quarterbacks have the ability to change plays, but they give Daniel Jones an extreme amount of information. They are laying it on him, and he's handling it and processing it and getting everybody where they're supposed to be and in the right situation and delivering the ball to the right read. It's really impressive to watch. And I got to tell you, it is the confidence for me is why he's able to do this. Confidence in his protection, confidence in himself, confidence in his coach. He's a different guy. He looks like a different guy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I had to say that myself too. I'm looking at the plays happening, and I'm like, okay, who jumped in his body? I said that a couple times watching some of the plays, and I'm like, geez, is this really him? But I have to ask as well too, just overall for the team and just the way the team is carrying themselves, how much has he kind of uplifted everything with this team with how he's been playing?
I think it's a good question. It's an important question because what's happened here is that quarterback has just been such an issue for so long. They have a team for whom the core has been together for a long time. So these guys, a lot of these veterans have seen 2 and 3 and 4 quarterbacks, right? So they have every season come into the season wondering, like, are we going to get good enough quarterback play this year? If I do my job, is the quarterback going to be able to get it done? That's been a recurring question. So there is a lot of comfort in for guys like, I don't know, Michael Pittman Jr., for example, who drafted in 2020. Think about this. He had Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, and company in 2022 because they played 3 quarterbacks. He had Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew, a little bit of Joe Flacco. I mean, it's a lot, And so, and I probably missed one for that matter. So what I'm saying is to
I
be
thought
able
Sam
to
Erlinger out there too.
Sam Ellinger, absolutely. Nick
Ellinger, I'm
Foles.
sorry.
So
Yep.
I mean, that is a lot, man, to have to cope with, and it's just impossible to win consistently like that. Okay, it's impossible. So now here you have a quarterback who is not only doing his part, but like, at least for right now, a long way to go. Okay, and this is a big test coming up. So I want to give the qualification when I say this, the qualifier. But there is something to be said for what he has, having that confidence in your quarterback. Okay, and knowing if I do my job and I win my matchup, that he's going to give me a chance to go make a play. And the accuracy with which he is throwing the ball is one of the most impressive things for me. Daniel Jones has now turned into, I mean, a sharpshooter.
Mhm.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, he's throwing guys open. The ball is, it's like a pitcher. He's throwing it low and away when there's a defender converging. I mean, the ball placement is sick. It's crazy.
Mhm.
And then you find yourself saying, what in the world? So think about that. Think about it if you are a Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, whoever, right? I mean, think about the comfort it brings you to know that this quarterback, man, he's getting it done. And I'm not worried about him. That hasn't been the case. That just hasn't. And I think it's very refreshing for these guys. And I don't know that they saw it coming. They might say they did. I don't believe them. Okay. They did, however, get a lot of buy-in. They did buy into the idea of Daniel Jones pretty early on because they saw his work ethic. And I think once you get in the meeting room with him and you see the command and the understanding that he has, he's a veteran, right? I mean, and he has that close relationship with the Mannings and David Cutcliffe. They were on the Manning cast last night, and you understand the relationship that they have in terms of the football side, not personal relationship, but the football relationship, going back to having that same coaching. So anyway, a very long-winded way of saying, I think they saw that they were dealing with the real deal in terms of understanding football, but going out and actually doing it physically is something completely different. And now he has done that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And like you mentioned, of course, there are some that still don't believe in the Indianapolis Colts, and they have a big test this week. They will be going against the Los Angeles Rams. We're going to kind of dive into that one. By the way, Daniel Jones is his completion percentage right now. Say if it were to stay around this, it would be a career high for him. So, it's going to be interesting, though, seeing him going against the Los Angeles Rams this week in Los Angeles. We're going to talk about that matchup right after the commercial break.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton, here with Stephen Holder, ESPN.com Colts reporter. And, of course, like I mentioned, there's a big matchup going on this weekend. That would be the Colts going west to take on the Los Angeles Rams. Matt Stafford and all those guys out there, which, I can only imagine the excitement, the interest, the intrigue that's going to be surrounding that game. But of course, we got to dive into it. And first, I got to talk about the Rams wide receivers, Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Saw both of these guys here in Nashville versus the Tennessee Titans, and they were all moving around the defense, and moving around offensively, whether it's in the slot, outside, taking handback sweeps if you're Puka Nacua, going off motion on fourth down and going for a touchdown, by the way. And it just was interesting and incredible to watch just the usage of these two guys and how Sean McVay was deploying them. But of course, they're going against a Lou Anarumo defense that does have a lot of surprises on its end. So how do you kind of expect Lou Anarumo to try and limit or go after these two weapons, as well as, go after an aging quarterback that can still sling it with the best of them in Matt Stafford?
Well, you're not going to phase Matthew Stafford. So it's going to be a different kind of approach. I think you saw the Colts come after, Cam Ward a little bit with the blitz, but they didn't have to do it as much because they were having success with their 4-man rush at times. So you can kind of have the liberty of just kind of trying some different things, but they're going to have to be very judicious in this game because, first of all right, you can blitz Matthew Stafford if you want to, but I don't know if that's the way to go about it, right? He's not going to be fazed by that. He's not going to miss any protection calls. You've got a good offensive line you're dealing with there, so this won't be, no offense to the Titans, but this will not be the same sort of matchup. So I am interested to see that battle of wits there. And Lou Anarumo mentioned, in fact, that he's still salty about the matchup in the Super Bowl with Sean McVay. When he was with the Cincinnati Bengals back in the 2021 season, I believe. So that is just a reality that you're going up against a veteran quarterback, an offensive mastermind on the sideline, and two beasts on the outside that you just mentioned. So this is going to be their biggest test to date. There's no question about it. I think the Broncos, interestingly, in week 2 against the Colts, who I don't think you categorize the Broncos in the same tier as the Rams right now, but that Broncos offense made a fair amount of plays. So I think this is going to tell us a lot. I'm not downplaying the 3-0 record, but I am saying it probably needs a little bit of an asterisk next to it, and the defense hasn't truly been tested the way I think it will be tested on Sunday. And frankly, this defense, I think, has been less consistent than the offense. So we're going to see. We're going to find out. We're going to learn some things. But this is the NFL, right? You certainly got to win the games where you're favored, and then in games like this one, we find out what you're made of, and that's what separates the good teams from the great teams. So 4-0, you have to earn 4-0, okay? And they're trying to get the 4-0. That shouldn't be easy, and it will not be easy for sure.
Oh, one other thing that won't be easy is blocking Jared Verse. Jared Verse, the defending defensive rookie of the year. It's going to be a handful. So how do you expect, I expect him to get some attention and maybe some more attention, but how do you kind of expect the Colts to deal with him? And of course, you have Fisk over there with him too, former teammates at Florida State, now teammates in the NFL. So, definitely. And you got to also mention they do have other pass rushers as well. So how do you deal with just first, though, Jared Verse and kind of limiting his impact on this defense and on the Colts offense?
You better keep your head on a swivel for sure. I do think that the Colts are up for this matchup, but it won't be easy, and they're going to have to, I think, game plan accordingly. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to really pick your spots when it comes to, holding the ball in this game, and any sort of deep shot plays they call. You're going to have to be you're gonna have to be very judicious in terms of how you go about that. You may have to max protect to do it, so that you don't have any slippage there. You can't afford to have your quarterback sitting back there on a 7-step drop, holding the ball for 3.5 seconds, and then get blown up, right? So they may not have the full the full playbook available to them, because they may have to eliminate some things due to concerns, frankly, with protection. But I think this offensive line is up to the task, though. Overall, they've outperformed my expectations so far. I will give them credit. I was concerned about this offensive line a little bit. The Colts, that's been a strength of theirs for a long time. However, they did lose 2 starters and 2 reliable veteran guys, and Ryan Kelly. And then, you also lose, a right guard. And then, so what you're doing is they took Matt Gonzalez, who was a right tackle last season, moved him to right guard behind Will Fries, who's in Minnesota with Ryan Kelly. And then you have a young center who started 5 games last season. I think penciling that in, or rubber stamping that as good to go, for me was a little bit too much to assume. Okay. And to their credit, this unit has come together. And then getting Braden Smith back at right tackle, he has performed up to expectations as well. So overall, I got to say, I'm not saying I was worried about this offensive line, but I wasn't ready to just say that they were a finished product. I didn't think that was wise, but they have played, I think, exceptionally. Okay. So it's part of the reason for Daniel Jones' success, a big reason for it, to be completely honest.
Yeah, definitely a good offensive line play. Definitely takes a team, and good play in the trenches in general takes a team to another level and makes them even better sometimes than what they actually are. But what isn't as good as what Rams fans would think it should be is the play of their cornerbacks. Now, I know their defense is not necessarily anything to sneeze at, but the weak point of it is definitely their cornerbacks. They can be had there. So should Daniel Jones be kind of licking his chops for those opportunities where he's able to use Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Tyler Warren, whoever the Colts put out there to make some big plays and splash plays on these cornerbacks?
Well, I will tell you this. One thing that Shane Steichen is great at is creating matchups. He really is great at it. And he's going to do that here. He does it all the time. And I have no doubt he'll do it here. That being said, when I say matchups, favorable matchups, right? But that being said, 2 weeks ago, Daniel Jones said, all right, hey, there's Pat Surtain over there on the other side against Denver, and I'm going to throw right at him. He threw at him like 5 times. No one does that. I thought he was crazy. And he had a lot of success. Look, no, I wouldn't say any explosive plays, but they had some key first down throws against Pat Surtain. I mean, who does that, right? And so it's the defending defensive player of the year. So I say all that to say they weren't scared of anybody anyway. So, or at least Daniel Jones isn't. So as crazy as it might sound, so I would expect that they better buckle the chin straps on Sunday, those Rams corners, because Daniel Jones suddenly is fearless and is ready to light you up, apparently. So who knew?
Right, exactly. And last question I do have, looking at just these offenses and how explosive they are, and the defenses can be susceptible to giving up points. Do you expect a high scoring game in this one? I know I kind of do, but do you kind of expect it as well?
I lean toward that. I mean, the Colts, the one thing they've done this year is score. And I think, a game similar to what we saw with Indianapolis and Denver could be the case, right? Where you have 2 offensives that are making plays throughout the day, and, who plays the cleaner game sometimes in those situations ends up winning, because it's going to come down to, like, who can take advantage of the other team's mistakes, when both teams are putting points on the board like that. So, and in that game, speaking of that Broncos game, it was the late penalty by Denver with the leverage penalty that allowed the Colts, to have a shot at kicking the game-winning field goal. So I don't know that it's going to come down to something like that, but I could see a game that is on the higher end in terms of scoring. And I will say this: so far, the Colts have been really clean. So when you get into one of those shootouts, it's the team that doesn't beat itself. And right now, that team so far has been the Colts. No turnovers this year. Pretty good on the penalties overall. And that's winning football. That's a winning combination right there.
And another winning combination is the number one, which is the amount of punts they've had this year. So, yeah, it's amazing to me that they've only punted one time this year. It's insane. I think in the booth during the game, the Colts and Titans game, when they punted, we were like, "Oh my God, we're the first team to make them punt." That's what some of the people were saying in there. That's what some of the people were saying in the actual booth, which I thought was interesting. That there was some applause over that. But boy, oh boy, an interesting game on Sunday, Rams and Colts, and just a very over the top in terms of what to expect. Start from the Colts, starting at 3-0, and Daniel Jones looking like one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. Again, like I said, I'm looking outside to see if pigs are flying, but they aren't. Daniel Jones is really out here doing this. So, I want to thank you, Mr. Stephen Holder, for coming on the show, talking about the Indianapolis Colts and kind of getting everyone and bringing everyone into what all is going on with the Indianapolis Colts, preparing everyone for the Colts and Rams this Sunday. If you can, they can find you on social media and any other things you want to tell the good people.
Yeah, I am specifically on Twitter at Holder Stephen. I don't know why I did it with the last name first. I think the other one was taken when I set up my profile many, many years ago. So Stephen with a PH. And yeah, I started a TikTok too. What is that name? Search me on TikTok. You'll find me. That's how much I use it. But I will be posting a little more on TikTok as well. So, hey, man, give me some grace. I got my 16-year-old daughter, getting me hip to it. So I'm trying.
I hear you there.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, though.
Oh, man. It. Well, of course, thank you again for coming on the show. Of course, if you want to find me, the show had on the Arsenal Noter, as I like to call it, because I won't call it X, because the only X I recognize is DMX and Malcolm X. That is it. But you can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at MikePatton82. That's MikePatton82 on the artist formerly known as Twitter. And of course, on Instagram and Threads, you can find me there at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. Touring the AFC South, you can find on all listening platforms. And you can also find Touring the AFC South on the Mike Patton Network on YouTube. Again, Mr. Stephen Holder, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your information. Episode 359, Touring the AFC South in the books. We're out. Peace.